Hi guys, welcome back to 31 Days of Goosebumps this October, and today we're going to be talking about the Fox Kids TV show and the recent movie, 2015 Jack Black movie, talking about the video effects of Goosebumps over the years and the differences between the modern film and the iconic 90s series we grew up with. The Fox Kids series was a Canadian production that was very much kind of in competition, you could say, with like Are You Afraid of the Dark? And in many ways, they're very different. Goosebumps is always the slightly more cheesy, more corny one. And I actually still like watching it today. If you watch it growing up and you haven't seen it in years, there's a couple VHS copies of some episodes up here that we have. It's actually just as fun, I think. I don't know about, because you've seen a couple, but I've watched like half the series lately. To watch as an adult with sort of that corny, cheesy factor to it, it very much gets the essence of the Goosebumps books, I think, across. Because like the Goosebumps books, like when you're young, like there's this frightening element, but it's not outright horror. And it has that kind
thrilling.
and has that kind of, it's very tongue-in-cheek. Every one of the Goosebumps books is has this tongue-in-cheek kind of goofy. I think it's part of the popularity is that even if you're an adult, it's obviously a kid's book, but it actually can be kind of enjoyable. And same thing with the series, it's just kind of fun and goofy, and like it's kind of just, I don't know, like a good time. It's something that's not, it's not highbrow, it's not scary, it's just kind of a good time, and it's approachable. And the series did that perfectly.
Yes.
So, and I think visually too, even.
Oh,
like the costumes and everything, and you were talking about, we'll go into the movie then a little bit, the difference between how kids were portrayed in the kids series in the 90s versus how kids were portrayed in this movie, and that's one element of how the essence of Goosebumps, I feel, was lost in this new movie.
Well, I think it's everything. It's not just Goosebumps. I think it really has been just culturally now versus the 90s. I don't know. I see a big difference.
How there are fewer actual kids. Like that was always an issue with the high school thing. It was always like, even if you go as far back as 60s, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
They always played like 20-year-olds. But I think what Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark did, especially like Goosebumps, did a really good job. It was middle school age kids playing middle school age kids. Like
and it was grounded in reality.
Yes,
which is, I think, is lost now. That we live in an age where nothing is real. Everything is CGI. There's no practical effects. Nothing's actually there. And I think it's so sad, like that there's people that grow up without that.
Nothing's tangible, and they don't get it. They're like, well, what, this look really cool. They don't look tangible. It doesn't look like they're in the scene with the actor. It doesn't look in the environment. And like with the kids element, it really was like 6th, 7th, and 8th graders playing like 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and it was they worked because it was the story of children from a child's perspective, played by children of that age. And like it worked. It felt like real kids.
It was believable.
Yeah.
They moved like children. They talked like children.
They looked awkward, and they were like going through puberty, and like it worked really well, and it felt relatable in that way. They acted like kids.
I really missed that in the movie. I think there were other issues, but that was my biggest issue.
Yeah, that was a big glaring one. That was my biggest issue. But it was a glaring issue with the movie. The movie overall. I think that gets into the idea of how the movie lost the feeling of Goosebumps. It doesn't feel Goosebumps at all. Like nothing about it feels Goosebumps. It lost that essence of the children. The creatures didn't. I mean, CGI was horrendous. I thought it was awful.
You have to expect this is not a big budget.
Yes, it was a big budget movie. It was $58 million. Like
that's crazy.
It was,
That's why do you need that much money to make a movie?
But you didn't get the bang for the buck though with this. Like,
but you knew it was going to be a cash cow. Like you knew.
Yes, but I thought the CGI was going to be didn't look like it was made in 1999. Like the CGI was not good. And the other thing too with the monsters is not only that, they focused on about 4 creatures.
Yeah, I really was disappointed with that.
Dozens of different creatures you could have used, and like even in some of the background shots where you see big groups of monsters,
you see there's
a couple generic ones that stand out. Like there's a couple, but a lot of the ones you don't really see. Like you don't see some of the iconic stuff like Monster Ball. You don't see the mask. You don't like there's so many different ones.
You don't see any.
It really focused on like 3 or 4 different creatures, and they aren't even necessarily the most popular or iconic ones, aside from Slappy. Aside from Slappy, I'm talking about the other ones. Like a lot, there wasn't just the ensemble, this onslaught of like Goosebumps creatures and nostalgia. It didn't have that feel, and there's always this almost very colorful kind of cartooniness to the Goosebumps, the color palette and the way they're portrayed in the cover art of the books and in the old series, and like there's a very Goosebumps look. and that was part of the contrast it made with Are You Afraid of the Dark, which was more realistic and like darker colors, and like it was very kind of, it was a colorful and goofy color palette, and this was very dark and dim.
Yes.
And again, like it just didn't focus on very many of the creatures. I actually think the thing during the ending credits where they did the animation stuff, that looked more Goosebumps during the ending credits.
Covers.
But like they were like animated in a way, and they made it in a way that looked like the colors were right. But again, like just from that perspective, you didn't feel Goosebumps from the perspective of the kids that were all like high schoolers now.
And love. The romance.
The love story didn't work.
You can't have that in Goosebumps.
It didn't work, and but it also didn't work because it should have been a story about R.L. Stein, and it should have been about the relationship of that daughter he created. But it should have been about her finding out. Yeah.
Pick one. If you're not gonna do it, then don't do it. Yeah. But pick one. Either way.
Yeah.
They didn't pick. They went back and forth.
Yeah. It should have been about. But the way they did it, you didn't need those other characters. It should have been what they were hinting at about the past of R.L. Stein and him having to, of the character R.L. Stein, the Jack Black character, and moving around and his childhood and creating these friends and these creatures. It should have been about that and his loneliness and why he created this daughter in the story and her finding out. It should have been about her finding out that she's actually one of his creations and the dynamic between them, the father-daughter. Like that would have worked really well. You didn't need this. It felt like a basic cable or like Netflix teen drama. You know what I mean? It felt like that.
Well, they had the right people for it.
The guy from
13 Reasons Why.
13 Reasons Why guy. But it really, that's what it felt like, the vibe of that, with a little bit of pretend Goosebumps thrown in, if it didn't feel like without Goosebumps. And it all just didn't work. Some of the characters were annoying. The champ was just annoying. I feel like the humor, and it wasn't really, because I know someone could come in and say critically, well, it's a kid's movie, you're not going to get the humor, but no. You can see good kids humor. I can go back and watch kids movies. You can even watch some kids movies today. I've seen, I regularly spend a lot of time with a 6-year-old. I see a lot of modern kids stuff, and there are some things, they're horrendous. There's some things that actually you can still see good writing and good kids humor in a kids movie without being a kid. And this was just bad. And everything about the action was just overly, not just overly CGI, but it was overly just messy, and you never really knew, you could see what was going on, and in a positive way. It wasn't detailed. Everything was just kind of flashy, and it was just kind of, it was no substance to it. There's no soul to it. It was just kind of a mess. It was just kind of this on-screen just diarrhea of just stuff. And effects and things happening and story elements that are brought up but never brought into any great detail, and you have the high school party looks like a rave, and terrible humor,
really
and
upsetting. All
the characters were they were not fleshed out. They were annoying. They were just everything, even for his mother, his aunt. No one was done well in any way. Yeah, it was just it had some moments.
It did.
Some moments, even some things that are haha, kind of to people that would be the right age to watch Goosebumps, the Laserdisc comment, and the rant about Stephen King and how he sold more than Stephen King. There were a couple elements, a couple little jokes here and there that worked, and it wasn't an outright travesty. It wasn't an atrocious trash movie.
But it wasn't Goosebumps.
It didn't feel Goosebumps,
Goosebumps.
And there wasn't a single element that was really good about it. You know what I mean? Because you could have had something that varied so much from Goosebumps that didn't feel Goosebumps, but it worked in its own right. This I didn't feel did that. This was half-ass Goosebumps with a half-ass whatever it was, some elements of Gremlins thrown in, and just I don't know.
Everything else
Didn't work.
I don't know. I think it's harder for us because we understand Goosebumps. We are the generation that grew up with Goosebumps, and Goosebumps is so iconic, and R.L. Stein is a genius. He gets the humor correct. He's so good at writing. It's very difficult to write horror for children and have that fine line.
The fine line. Where do you make it to where it's scary but not horror? You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's what made it worse, is because R.L. Stein can do it, and you've seen him do it, and this is not written by R.L. Stein.
Yeah,
you can tell that this is not R.L. Stein. This is not Goosebumps, and I think that made it worse, because a Goosebumps book of this, the two protagonists, they would have been friends. They wouldn't have been love interests.
Yeah.
It would have been friends.
It would have been 12, 13 also.
Yeah,
it would have been.
It wouldn't have had anything to do with romance and.
But everything was just so poorly written. Overall, it was.
But there were glimmers of hope.
Yeah, there were moments.
And
there were moments that worked, and I don't know. What was your thought on Jack Black as R.L. Stein? I didn't like it at all. And I don't dislike Jack Black.
I like Jack Black.
There's some things. Yeah, there's some things he's in that I really like. I like Tenacious D. I even liked him in Skull Rock and things like that. I do like Jack Black, but I didn't like him in this. He wasn't outright like horrendous, but it just was weird. It felt weird.
He was trying to be a writer. Like he was trying too hard, and it almost sounded like Will Ferrell to me.
And some
like,
of his
Will Ferrell being like sophisticated.
Yeah,
like
some of his line deliveries.
Yeah, it was very strange and like not R.L. Stine at all.
He wasn't perfect as Slappy either. I didn't even realize at first because I was really separating him in my mind. I didn't know it was his voice at first.
But if you're looking away, wait a second.
But even then, I think he did a better job at Slappy and his humor in that delivery than he did as R.L. Stine. Like it didn't feel believable. It felt like Jack Black playing a character. It didn't feel like it was a character. Like, and that was one thing. And he can do. He's not a great dramatic actor. He's more comedy, but he's done better dramatic performances than this. And again, this isn't like a straight drama, but it's more of the character he was playing. While it has comedic elements, there are scenes and lines and things that needed to be delivered in a more serious, dramatic tone that didn't come across at all. Like, he wasn't believable as the character. He was really Jack Black. Like, it felt almost like SNL skit-ish. You know what I mean? Kind of.
Well, and I think that's what made it not work. Is that that's not what these Goosebumps. Like, that's not what that was.
Yeah, it doesn't feel Goosebumps.
Like, it was more like they were trying to be Are You Afraid of the Dark, Hocus Pocus, Jumanji from like. 21st century, like 2017.
Like Jumanji, Gremlins, Goosebumps thrown in with like a Netflix teen drama, or like the Disney teen stuff, like the Descendants or something. Like and, it
flashy, bang, bang. Like the effects were just like over the top and like unnecessary.
But they weren't good.
But they were unnecessary.
Because you can have like crazy and like a movie that is oversaturated with unnecessary effects and like visual confusion. You can have that to where it's like, okay, it's too much. You need to tone it down. But I can see what you were doing. But with this, it wasn't even that. It was just nothing was just very well done. It looks like a lot of the effects sequences just weren't well put together, weren't well crafted and directed. Like they're just kind of like they're awkward and there wasn't real focus.
Like there were multiple people writing and they just like pieced it together.
That's the way it felt. Yeah, it had that feeling to it. Yeah.
But I don't know. It was weird, and I was really missing the Goosebumps music. Like, that's so iconic.
I do think that was probably a rights thing. I mean, look it up behind the scenes, but it probably like was a rights thing with like Fox versus now I think it was Nickelodeon and things like that. Like, it's different.
But
but
I did miss that.
And Sony doing it, but I don't know.
Sony.
But even then, even without like the Goosebumps elements, it didn't work in its own right either. Like I said, like it wasn't, even if you take out the perspective of Goosebumps, you never even heard of Goosebumps in your entire life, it still doesn't really work just as a movie.
Who hasn't heard of Goosebumps?
But it still doesn't work on its own 2 feet. And that's the real problem, is if you could have at least pulled that off, but it couldn't. It wasn't, I mean, I've seen a lot worse, but it wasn't.
No, it wasn't horrendous.
Good. It wasn't good. It was very mediocre.
I think we're more offended because
we had
that.
Make that differentiation.
We had so much better quality stuff.
Like to me, like trying to pull out myself from it, I'd say it's like a middle of the road, like a 5, 6 out of 10 kids movie. Not horrendous, but it's not amazing. Like, but from my perspective, like putting myself emotionally into it's like a 3 out of 10. Like the difference. And again, like the kids show, if you've never actually seen the show, like if you are a little bit younger and you've not seen it, or if you're a lot older and you were, maybe you didn't have quite have kids yet when it was coming out, the show is actually worth checking out. I mean, the whole thing I think is right now on Netflix. So you have Netflix, just check it out because it actually is kind of a cheesy, fun, good time. It works really well. It's not just
like a nice, comforting.
Yeah, it's not like sitting and watching like Curious George or something like. You know what I mean? Like there's certain kid shows that it's like if you're not a kid or you're not watching it with a kid and you don't have a nostalgic attachment to it. Like I wouldn't suggest you go back and watch like He-Man if you didn't watch it in the 80s. You know what I mean? There's certain things.
But it's so funny.
But the Goosebumps actually works on a different level. It is kind of interesting and comedic, and it does portray kids in the light of children. They feel like kids. They work, and that works really well. So the show is an iconic 90s show for a good reason. It works really well, and it really captured the spirit of the books on screen. I think is why it worked well. The movie, not so much. If you haven't seen it, skip it. To be honest, I don't think it's worth your time. It wasn't worth. I
don't know. I definitely wanted to see it.
I wanted to see it to have seen it, but after seeing it, don't bother.
It's not something I would watch again, whereas I would watch these again.
Yeah. No, I do want the Goosebumps. I do want the show on DVD and things like that. Like, it's something worth rewatching because it's just kind of like entertaining. But yeah, so the show is really, really good. And if you're getting into this Goosebumps stuff and you've been liking our reviews of the books and everything like that, and you haven't started reading them and you want to reread them or you've not seen it before, that's an element you should add to your sort of bucket list of Goosebumps.
Definitely.
Read the books, watch the show. the movie. Yes. I say skip it. You say maybe check it out. At least see what you think.
Yeah, I think to see it.
I don't think it's worth 2 hours of your time. But anyway, so that is our look at the TV show and the recent movie, and I think they've greenlit already at the time of filming this a second movie.
Oh, really?
They're in Goosebumps 2. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's greenlit. I don't know how far along it is, but I'm pretty sure that's like going to be a thing.
Wow.
So
we'll see how that
we'll see how that turns out. I'm not excited about it, but we'll see how that turns out. But maybe 2 years from now, I'll be watching that on Netflix and talking about it. But anyway, Goosebumps continues.